The stars were quiet that night. Too quiet. From the observation deck of Orbital Station Athens, the sweep of the Milky Way looked serene, a diamond river flowing through a black eternity. But for Admiral Kalen Ross, there was no beauty in it, only the steady, gnawing tension of a man who knew war was about to begin. Terran Command's war room was a fortress of steel and light behind him, alive with holographic projections and streaming data. The room pulsed with urgency, fleet movements, encrypted transmissions, whispers from the frontier. Kalen stood at the center like an immovable pillar, his posture straight, hands clasped behind his back. The weight of Earth's survival pressed against his ribs. For weeks, the Galactic Empire's fleets had been gathering beyond the Orion Gate. Thousands of warships, some the size of small moons, were positioning themselves like predators before the strike. The Empire had already annexed 14 systems this cycle alone. Now, they had made the mistake of setting their sights on Terran space. Earth was no longer a forgotten backwater. "Admiral," a voice broke through his thoughts. Commander Sarah Vale stepped forward, her face lit by the pale blue of the tactical screens. "We've confirmed Imperial Fleet Sigma has crossed the border near Vega. 3 carrier groups. No cloak. No attempt at diplomacy." Kalen's jaw tightened. That was no mistake. The Empire was sending a message: they did not fear Terran fleets. "They want to provoke us," he said quietly. "Sir, Terran Council is waiting," Sarah reminded him. Kalen nodded once and turned, his boots echoing on the polished floor as he strode into the council chamber. The chamber's holodeble flared to life, surrounding him with the faces of Earth's leaders, Prime Chancellor Ree, Defense Minister Varric, and the entire Terran Assembly. Their expressions were grim. "This is no longer a negotiation," Kalen said, wasting no time on pleasantries. "The Empire has crossed into Vega. That is sovereign Terran space. If we do nothing, they will advance further, to Arcturus, to Sol itself. Our silence will be seen as weakness." Prime Chancellor Ree's dark eyes fixed on him. "Are we prepared for what this means? You know what happens if we make this declaration. The Empire will not hesitate." Kalen's voice was steel. "Neither will we." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, slowly, the Chancellor gave a single nod. "Then say the words, Admiral. Make it clear for all the galaxy to hear." Kalen took a deep breath, straightened, and let his voice carry, recorded, amplified, and transmitted across every Terran frequency. "This is Admiral Kalen Ross of Terran Defense Command. By order of the Terran Council, the Galactic Empire is hereby forbidden from entering Terran space. Any vessel, military or civilian, crossing our borders without clearance will be intercepted, boarded, and, if necessary, destroyed. This is not a threat. This is a promise. Terran space is sovereign, and we will defend it." The declaration echoed across the stars, bouncing from relay to relay, until it reached every colony, every outpost, every listening station. Humanity had just drawn a line in the cosmos. For a moment, the room was silent, as though the universe itself held its breath. Then the war alarms began to howl. Hours later, Kalen stood again on the observation deck, but the stars no longer looked serene. Across the void, Terran fleets were moving. The Atlas-class dreadnoughts, humanity's most powerful warships, slid into formation like giants waking from a long slumber. Carrier groups began launching fighter wings, their drives burning bright trails against the black. The Sol defense grid pulsed online, a lattice of orbital cannons and kinetic shields spanning millions of kilometers. Earth was ready. Intel reports Imperial reaction. Commander Sarah's voice came through his comm. "They've accelerated. Fleet Sigma is inbound at full burn. Estimated arrival at Vega perimeter in 30 hours. Kalen turned from the stars, his heart hammering. "So soon?" "Order all fleets to battle readiness," he said. "No one fires first, unless the Empire forces us." But if they cross the Vega exclusion line. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Across the galaxy, the Empire's throne world was in uproar. Holoscreens across the Imperial capital blazed with Earth's message, playing on repeat, each word an act of defiance. Unthinkable, growled High Strategos Vern, slamming a clawed fist against the marble floor of the Imperial war chamber. A single planet dares issue decrees to the Empire? They should be crushed for the insult. Empress Caratha's golden eyes narrowed as she watched the recording one last time. Her spined crown gleamed in the light of the chamber. Humans, she said softly, almost to herself. They were meant to remain obedient after the Concord. Yet here they stand, defiant. Perhaps the rumors are true. Perhaps they have grown strong. The room fell silent at her words. No one dared speak against the Empress. Send the Second Legion, she said finally. No half measures. We will see if this Terran Defense Command can stand against the weight of the Empire. Back at Vega, Kalen stood on the bridge of the TDS Revenant, Earth's flagship. The massive warship thrummed beneath his boots, a beast of steel and plasma waiting to be unleashed. Outside the viewport, the jump gates shimmered with incoming signatures. One by one, Imperial ships tore into real space, their hulls glistening with the light of distant stars. Cruisers. Destroyers. Carriers. The fleet was vast, more than Kalen had ever seen in one place. The crew of the Revenant watched in tense silence. They've crossed the line, Sarah said. Kalen didn't hesitate. His voice rang out like a gunshot. Then we hold the line. The first battle of Terran space had begun. The silence shattered with the first pulse of weapons fire. The Imperial fleet moved as one, an avalanche of light and metal spilling from the Vega jump gate. Plasma lances slashed across the void, targeting Terran forward pickets. The blackness of space lit up with violent flashes as the opening volleys tore into the darkness. Shields holding, reported Lieutenant Merrick, his voice calm but tight. Outer perimeter stations responding with counterfire. On the TDS Revenant, Admiral Kalen Ross stood on the command platform, his eyes fixed on the massive holotank projecting the battlefield in 3 dimensions. Red icons, Imperial warships, were pouring through the gate like blood through a wound. Blue icons, Terran defenders, began to shift and align, holding position along the Vega exclusion line. Hold formation, Kalen ordered. Let them commit first. Make them believe we are passive. Outside, the stars were burning with battle. Terran frigates darted through the void like hunting wolves, flanking Imperial cruisers and striking with railgun salvos that split hulls in 2. The Empire responded with brutal efficiency, their carriers releasing waves of drone fighters that swarmed like locusts. Outer pickets falling back, Commander Sarah Vale reported, her hands dancing across the tactical console. We've lost Station Vega 3. Kalen's jaw clenched. Signal the line to engage at will. Open fire. The Revenant roared to life. Its spinal rail cannon discharged with a thunderous crack, a spear of hypervelocity tungsten tearing through the void. The projectile slammed into an Imperial battleship, punching through its shields and splitting it apart in a blossom of flame. Terran dreadnoughts followed suit, their coordinated barrage filling space with streaks of death. For the first time, the Empire hesitated. Admiral, enemy command ship identified, Sarah said, highlighting a massive carrier dominating the Imperial formation. Designation, Harrow class. Shield output is extreme, likely carrying fleet coordination AI. Target priority Alpha, Kalen said instantly. Break its shields. Cut the head off the beast. Terran bombers surged forward, darting between Imperial flak bursts. Microsingularity torpedoes trailed blue light as they streaked toward the Harrow's shields. The first wave struck, making the carrier's shields ripple like water under a storm. The second wave broke through, detonations tearing across its hull. Direct hit, shouted Merrick. Harrow shields down. But the celebration was short-lived. A ripple of energy swept across the Imperial formation. One by one, the enemy ships powered weapons to maximum and unleashed a coordinated alpha strike. Dozens of plasma lances converged on a single Terran dreadnought, the TDS Dauntless. The dreadnought's shields flared white-hot, then collapsed. On the Revenant's bridge, the crew watched in silence as the Dauntless was vaporized in a single blinding flash. Kalen's hands gripped the edge of the console until his knuckles turned white. The Empire had just demonstrated its precision and power, and they had more ships than Earth could hope to match. "Admiral," Sarah said quietly. "If they keep pouring reinforcements through the gate, we can't hold Vega. We'll be overrun." Kalen turned toward her, his voice low but unyielding. "Then we make sure no more reinforcements arrive." The decision was brutal, but there was no other choice. "Signal to Fleet Command," Kalen ordered. "Prepare Operation Iron Veil." Sarah's eyes widened. "Sir, that will collapse the Vega Gate entirely, both ends. Our people on the other side." Kalen cut her off. "They know the risk. If we don't cut the gate, the Empire will pour through until Sol burns." "Execute." The Revenant's engineering decks came alive with activity. Vast energy reserves were redirected to the ship's gate disruptor array, a weapon designed not to destroy ships, but to tear apart the very fabric of the jump corridor itself. "Charging array," reported the chief engineer. 60 seconds until full power. Outside, the battle was reaching a fever pitch. Imperial destroyers surged forward, trying to close the gap before the Terrans could act. Terran fighter wings threw themselves into the fray, buying seconds with their lives. One by one, their transponders winked out on the holotank. 30 seconds, Sarah called out. Kalen closed his eyes for a brief moment, silently honoring the sacrifices being made around him. Then he opened them again. There was no room for hesitation now. "Fire the array," he commanded. The Revenant unleashed a beam of pure, white-hot energy that speared into the center of the Vega Gate. Space itself seemed to twist and shudder. A shockwave rippled outward, rattling every ship in the system. The gate collapsed. The swirling vortex of the jump corridor imploded in on itself, collapsing into nothingness with a final, blinding flash. The conduit between Imperial space and Vega was gone, severed. On the Revenant's bridge, the crew erupted in cheers. But Kalen didn't smile. He knew what this meant. The Empire would see this not as a defensive action, but as an act of war. Far away, on the Imperial throne world, alarms blared as the Vega Gate's destruction was confirmed. High Strategos Vern nearly tore the communication console from its pedestal. They destroyed the gate? They cut themselves off from the network? The Empress rose from her throne, her expression unreadable. "They are not cowering," she said softly. "They are daring us. Preparing for a war they intend to win." She turned to her generals. "Then we will give them one." Back aboard the Revenant, Kalen stood once more at the viewport. The battle was over, for now. The remaining Imperial ships, stranded without reinforcements, had either been destroyed or were retreating deeper into Vega to regroup. The price had been high. Half the Terran fleet lay in ruins. Thousands were dead. But Vega still belonged to Earth. Commander Sarah stepped up beside him. "You know what comes next, don't you?" Kalen nodded grimly. "Oh, yes. The Empire won't stop now. They'll send everything they have. And when they do..." He looked out at the shattered Stars Cape, his expression hard as iron. "We'll be ready." The war for Terran space had truly begun. 3 weeks after Vega, the war had spread like wildfire. The Empire did not hesitate. Entire fleets were diverted from other frontiers to punish humanity's defiance. Imperial propaganda declared Earth a rogue world, a danger to galactic stability. But humanity was not idle either. From Mars to Titan, from Europa's shipyards to the orbital forges of Ceres, Terran industry thundered. Dreadnought hulls were welded together at a pace that defied possibility. The Atlas-class warships that had once taken years to build now rolled out of construction docks in months. New weapons were deployed: graviton torpedoes, singularity mines, hunter-killer drones guided by AI systems that thought faster than any human mind. And most importantly, the people rallied. Volunteers flooded enlistment centers. Entire colonies sent fleets of supply convoys to support the war. Humanity, for the first time in centuries, was united. Admiral Kalen Ross stood on the bridge of the TDS Revenant, staring at the largest fleet ever assembled in Terran history. Hundreds of warships formed a glittering wall of steel and plasma around him, each one waiting for his command. The battle ahead would decide everything. "Admiral, recon probes confirm Imperial Grand Armada is inbound," Commander Sarah Vale reported. Estimated numbers: over 1,000 capital ships. Multiple carrier groups. They're not holding back. Kalen nodded. They want to end this war today. So do we. He turned to the fleet-wide comm channel. This is Admiral Kalen Ross to all Terran Defense Forces. The Empire believes this is where we break. But today, we show them what it means to stand against humanity. You are the shield of Earth. You are the line that cannot be crossed. Hold that line, no matter the cost. A chorus of acknowledgments rang back. Across the fleet, gun crews readied for battle, pilots strapped into fighters, and captains took their places on command decks. The void before them shimmered. The Imperial Grand Armada emerged. It was like watching a storm swallow the stars. Wave after wave of Imperial warships tore into real space, blotting out the light behind them. Titan-class battleships loomed like floating mountains, bristling with weapons. Swarms of drone fighters spilled out ahead of them, darkening space like a mechanical plague. Then, silence. A moment of stillness, like the calm before a hurricane. And then hell itself was unleashed. The first volley from the Imperial Armada struck with the force of a god's wrath. Plasma lances and fusion beams raked across the Terran line, shattering shields, burning hulls. The TDS Sentinel, a dreadnought 3 kilometers long, detonated in a single catastrophic blast. But the Terrans did not break. "Return fire!" Kalen barked. The Terran fleet responded with a synchronized barrage. Rail cannons spat hypervelocity slugs that tore through Imperial shields. Missile pods unleashed clouds of smart munitions, weaving through enemy fire to detonate against carrier hulls. The Revenant spinal cannon fired, punching a hole clean through an Imperial Titan's reactor core. The void turned into a sea of fire. The battle raged for hours. The Imperial Armada pressed forward relentlessly, but the Terran line held, bleeding, burning, but unyielding. Every time the Empire punched through, Kalen redirected reserves, plugging gaps with fresh ships. Then, the moment Kalen had been waiting for came. "Admiral!" Sarah called out, pointing at the holotank. Imperial flagship detected, center formation. Massive shield output, fleet coordination signatures confirmed. Kalen's eyes narrowed. This was it, their chance to cut off the head of the serpent. "All ships, focus fire on the flagship," he ordered. "Bring the monster down." The Terran fleet concentrated its fire, hammering the Imperial flagship's shields. Wave after wave of bombers streaked toward it, dodging flak and enemy interceptors. The shields flared, weakened, then finally failed. "Direct hit!" Merrick shouted. "Flagship shields down." Kalen didn't hesitate. "Fire everything we have." The Revenant's rail cannon discharged one last time. The slug slammed into the Imperial flagship's bridge section, followed by a cascade of Terran missiles. For a moment, the massive vessel seemed to hang in space, burning from within. Then it exploded, a blinding flash tearing it apart. The effect was immediate. Across the Imperial Armada, coordination collapsed. Their formation broke apart, captains issuing conflicting orders. Some ships fought on. Others turned and fled. The Terran fleet surged forward. Hours later, the stars were quiet again. Wreckage drifted in every direction, glowing softly against the blackness. Humanity had not just survived. It had won. On the bridge of the Revenant, the crew sat in exhausted silence. Many had tears in their eyes. Others simply stared, unable to process what they had just accomplished. Sarah broke the silence. "Admiral. Imperial transmissions are coming through. They're signaling, surrender." Kalen let out a slow breath. He turned to face the viewport, staring out at the battlefield that had just become a graveyard. "Open the channel," he said. The image of the surviving Imperial Admiral appeared, his once proud uniform scorched and torn. His voice was strained, but clear. "We acknowledge Terran sovereignty. The Empire will withdraw from your borders. Effective immediately." Kalen nodded. "Then understand this, Terran space is closed to you. Forever. If you cross our borders again, you will not find us unprepared. You will find us waiting." The Imperial Admiral gave a slow, solemn nod before the transmission cut out. Later, when the fires of battle had cooled and the dead had been honored, Kalen stood alone on the observation deck. The stars glittered like cold, distant witnesses. Earth was safe. For now. He knew the galaxy would not forget what had happened here. The Empire had been forced to its knees by a world it once dismissed as insignificant. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not as subjects, but as equals. And somewhere, deep in his chest, Kalen felt a quiet pride. Terran space was no longer a line on a star map. It was a promise. A promise that would never be broken.